Yes, I would love to say that I would be talking about something that was kind of touching on Will did, because that is the stuff that we get really excited about. New developers coming into our community, doing the things that our community has really asked for and called for over the past 10, 15, 20 years. And it's great to also see new developers come into our community, because I'll be honest, when the last housing recession hit, we lost a lot of new developers. The barrier to entry is hard. So I would say, if you ever have a chance, support projects like this, because it's pretty amazing. So my name's Hal Baillie, Long Range Manager. I am actually here in a different capacity than I typically am. Usually I work for 4 different employers. The people of Lexington through the Comprehensive Plan, our Planning Commission, who is here in force tonight. Then I also have the mayor and the Urban County Council. So in each of those capacities, I serve in a slightly different role, but today I am here on behalf of the Urban County Council. The vice mayor recently, when we were looking at our comprehensive plan, saw that there was a hole in how we do our process, a hole that has been there since 1958, really. And that is how we talk about preservation and growth management in our community every step of the way. How do we really have this conversation in a clear and transparent way? So the vice mayor went ahead and moved this into the GGP, or the General Government and Planning Committee. This is under the leadership of Council Member Sheehan, and said we need to have this conversation. It's been too long, we've been trying too hard, and we've never gotten to an end result. So I'm going to quickly go through a lot of what we have been talking about over the past couple of months, give you an update, and then invite you to another meeting. So I hopefully you'll be not totally tired of hearing from me at the end of this presentation. But if you would like to hear more from me, feel free to visit the Engage Lexington website. Fantastic place for information. It has a bunch of recordings by me with less ums and uhs. So please visit it. There are some QR codes on your table. Tori has been in the back with cards. It is a great resource to go through this. So really, again, how are we talking about preservation and growth management for our community in the future? It really kind of stems from our comprehensive plan. Our community has been very serious about how we grow. How are we talking about infill and redevelopment? How are we talking about any type of new development within our community? Infill in the spots that we want it, and trying to densify our community so that we're getting the best out of our land that we have. The comprehensive plan has been consistent since the 1950s about how we want to do this in the best way forward. So it is also laid out very specifically in our goals and objectives that we have to do this. That is part of why I am in front of you. In 2023, when we adopted our goals and objectives for the most recent comprehensive plan, the council said, look, we need to finish this process. We've talked about it in the 60s, 70s, 90s, and then 2018, 2019, 2020. Let's finish this. Let's actually get this done. There we go. So I am assuming that everyone in this room knows what an urban service area is, largely because you have been going through this academy. This is a fantastic place to learn. But I will just say it is the area in which we have specified land uses, usually our densified land uses, our residential, commercial, and industrial, a lot more of our employment sector. That is where we are focusing the intention of our urban services, our water, our sewer systems, primarily our sewer systems, but our roadways, street lights, sidewalks, all of that type of development. If it is done in a clear and compact way, we're able to take advantage of the land we have and the money that we have so that we're not leapfrogging over development, building out on farms that are way out in the county and then saying, oh, well, how do we now run a significant amount of sanitary sewer lines out to that property? So in the 1950s, this was our urban service map. It was a map that said, look, this is where the primary densification is occurring. We know that farms are starting to get gobbled up in a leapfrog pattern, jumping over one another. Let's take this and think about it a little bit more seriously. Again, why did we do this? We really wanted to focus on the fiscal responsibility. Those were the initial reasons for this. We wanted to make sure that the money, the taxpayers' money, were going to the projects that needed to be done in a clear and focused way. And then as time went on, we get into the 1970s, we start to realize that it's not just about us talking about our infrastructure. It's not just about us talking about sanitary sewer lines. It's also about preserving our community, having an idea of what is Lexington. We started to have more and more conversations in our comprehensive plan of the importance of the rural areas, what we began calling our rural service areas. So it really was a way for us to say, not only are we being fiscally responsible, but we're also respecting our community from a historic perspective, making sure that we're doing things right. This does get to a very compact area. 68% of our total area is considered to be rural, but only contains 7% of our population. Large lots, big open land, a fair amount of naturalized areas. Whereas 32% of our area contains 93% of our population. That is a good standard to have. If you start to sprawl out, one, you're not using that infrastructure well, you can't pay for it long term. You are also you're erasing what made Lexington different. If you talk to people from Louisville, they might say, well, we wish we still had an urban service area. We sprawled a little bit, we got rid of it. A lot of our agricultural areas around there are just gone. So, I have my squiggles on there. I'll just keep on going. But this is actually a really important part of Lexington's history. We have been on the front end of trying to be progressive as a city. Whereas the first comprehensive plan was adopted in 1926 by Cincinnati, fantastic project. We adopted ours not that long after in 1931. Same firm that did Cincinnati's. So a really well-known firm doing good work and getting us to the point of us talking about how are we going to grow, how are we going to change. We established our planning commission in 1928. Eventually, we start having greater and greater conversations of interaction between our city and our county. And then we do have our first urban service area established in 1958. That is on every urban planning department's final test. You're going to have to take an AICP or an American Institute of Certified Planners. That is always on the test. So me not being from Lexington, when I came for my interview for the position that I was going for, the first thing I said, well, it's great that you have the nation's first urban service area, and people smile and nod, and they say, okay, now talk about how we continue to do that. How do we infill? How do we do these other things? Because it's not good enough for us to just say that we had the first. It's also very, very important for us to say that we are the best at making that land work for us. So just because we established in 1958 did not mean that we haven't changed. Our urban service area has moved, it has expanded, it's contracted, it has moved around in different areas, but it really has changed over time to fit the needs. I'll also say that our policies, our perspectives of things have changed dramatically since 1958, even since 1996. In 1968, we were projected to be at about our population. They did a great job with their population projections at that time. But they also said that we would have to be around 120 acres, or 120 square miles in size to make sure that we could support that population. We're less than that, and we're still hitting that kind of population level. That's an important perspective to take because we've been intentional about changing the way that we look at things over time. So here we have our current, or 1958 urban service area, 67 square miles, 125,000 people. We were the second largest city at that time. We still remain the second largest city. But it was really focused on trying to stem the tide of the rapid suburbanization of our community, making sure that we're doing things the right way with sewering and efficiency. There were several, and I'm jumping over some of the other expansions because you don't need to hear me talk about each and every one of them, but I would recommend, if you want more information, visit that Engage Lexington website. I have a full presentation of each and every kind of change that we've done. But I think it's really important to talk about the 1996 expansion. That was our most recent until the most recent expansion, in which we expanded a very large distance. We expanded by approximately 5,600 acres. That's a lot for us to try to do. This came after many years of not a lot of development, not a lot of change to our urban service area. So there was this built-up pressure in the community in which finally, the mayor at that time coordinated with a lot of different people, some in this room currently, to try to figure out a way to say, okay, we do need to expand. Let's do something with this and try to get something out of it. This resulted in the Expansion Area Master Plan of 1996. It was, at that time, a fairly progressive plan that was meant to provide housing, employment, a fair amount of commercial throughout the area, and it has been developing relatively slowly, but it has been developing. It really allowed for a lot more area to open up and brought us out a little bit past our interstates. This was the first time that we shifted outside of our interstates. It changed the view of connectivity for our community. It was really meant to be something different. Now, I'll also add that there were several things that were kind of added onto this. This was the planner that put together the EAMP was replicating Mayor Miller's 8-point plan at the time. And one of the things that the 8-point plan stated was we need to get all these things kind of done to figure out where we're going to go, to make sure that there's a process for the future so that we're preserving the land that we need to preserve and we're having adequate conversations of growth management. We are going to need to grow both up and potentially out at some point in time. This 8-point plan was really a perspective of saying, let's start that conversation for all of those things. How are we going to preserve? How are we going to grow? I will say that a lot of the aspects of preservation from that 1996 8-point plan got finished. We did a lot of them. We had the PDR program established. We established our rural land management plan that it put into some rules about development, how we were going to change. It established some lot size recommendations off of that plan in which it dramatically changed how we were seeing subdivision happen in our agricultural lands. We were no longer saying it's okay to go down to a 10-acre lot. We were saying we want lots that are actually for agriculture in our agricultural areas. So we were pushing for 40 acres. We added some open space acquisition elements. We didn't do a fabulous job on that, I'll be honest. We're getting better at that these days. But then we also put another focus on infill. We worked through our defined infill and redevelopment area. We tried to put in new regulations to help out infill with those small lots that are awkward to build on because that is just incredibly hard to do. We talked about adaptive reuse within our community. So we did a lot of those elements, but we left a glaring hole. We didn't talk about, well, if we're going to have to expand in the future, how do we do it in a clear and transparent way that is based off of data? And then also, how do we talk about what is the land that we really need to preserve from a capability map to also say maybe that's the direction we go in the future? So since those things didn't get done in 1996, everybody kind of left that 96 plan. They said, we got a lot of acreage to deal with, so development community was a little bit more okay. We got a lot of the preservation things on there, but it still left that hole. In 2018, we said, we still have this hole in this planning process. We are still not doing the thing right. We are still trying to figure out when is the appropriate time to expand if we need to, what are the policy changes that we need to get done, and what are some of the regulation things that we can put into place. Policy and regulation we do very well in our community. We have changed a lot of the ways that we talk about infill and redevelopment. We have pushed for new development to occur. And the thing that has been left out is when we talk about expansion, what are we talking about? How does that work? So in 2020, based off of the goals and objectives of the 2018 Comprehensive Plan, the Sustainable Growth Task Force came out and said, look, we need to have the data. Let's get this data, and then we'll go through a process of reviewing all that data, and that will lead to certain perspectives on when we need to grow. It established some really important things, but it did not get finalized. It established the fact that we need to have this baseline data. It has 2 reports that are that have been written up and put out there about the trends of our community. And it also led to the development of the Imagine Lexington Data Research Center. This is a current website that we're looking to expand upon, but it is a place in which members of our community can go out, find the information that they need about our community. Growth trends, what are we looking at for development trends? Permitting, population change, all of those things are going to be on this website. We're also hoping to add in industrial data, jobs producing data, commercial data, multifamily data, trying to get it all up there so that people can actually make decisions based off of the information that is out there. The second opportunity that people started looking at was the Goal 4 work group. This was trying to finish up what the Sustainable Growth work group did not finish. And it really was focused on setting the stage for permanent preservation, where urban growth might go, building upon those data trends, and then also looking at a process for saying, okay, we have all this information, how do we get to the next point of saying this is an appropriate growth location or this is appropriate development? It too did not get to across the finish line. Some very good work in both of these things. But because the process wasn't really worked out, there was a lot of information that was still left to be done, specifically getting us to establish that process and then implementing that process for our community. That led to an expansion of our urban service area. In 2023, the Urban County Council found that there was a need for housing in our community and directed the Planning Commission and the planning staff to go ahead and do a master plan for a set amount of acreage. And the planning staff, planning commission went ahead and did a master plan for 2,840 acres of our community located in 5 different areas. An area off of Parker's Mill and Man of War, area off of Winchester and the interstate, and then the area what we call the nose or the beak, so looking at Richmond Road, Athens Boonesboro Road, the interstate, and then the Blue Sky Rural Activity Center all the way up to Todd's Road. So we have expanded our urban service area. That was a fairly intense process, I'll say. We did that in just under a year's time. It established a lot of really good information for the planning staff and for the planning commission and for the development of a process. So now that we have this expansion, we have a lot of people that have said, well, why are we talking about this again? Why are we talking about a process? It's still a whole. From a planning perspective, I do not want someone in 15, 20, 30 years from now having to look at my notes like I had to look at everybody's notes from 1996 to figure out how we did this in 2023. We need to formulate a way that is clear, transparent, and data-driven for us to actually have these conversations going forward, or we're doing a disservice to our future Lexingtonians. So now that we have our current urban service area of just under 90 square miles, and our population is bumping up a little bit more, we need to get to this next set of development. How are we creating this process? What I am going to do is I'm going to go through our proposed framework a little bit here, and then I'll be happy to answer questions. I don't want to keep you too late. But feel free afterwards to give me a call, reach out to any of us. But I do also want to highlight 2 days from now, another set of presentations on this at the Senior Center off of Lifeway. So that will be from 4 till 7 p.m. But just give you an idea, we're still on the early side of this. We're still working hard to develop this process. The initial framework. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly, but for us to actually delve into the real details of this, we need buy-in on an initial framework of how this might work. Without having this layout or this perspective of how it might happen, how it might occur, that we review a potential change in growth management or preservation, we need buy-in on this. So it really is set up in 2 different ways. Everything in orange that you see up there, even the backgrounds that are a little bit more faded out, that's a planning commission kind of perspective. They are going to be in charge of that specific element of this process. Anything in green, that is the Urban County Council. Anything in black, black or blue that's on there, that's subcommittees or the staff, non-decision making process people. So, what is being recommended right now with a framework for this process is that every 5 years, off cycle of the comprehensive plan, which is a statutory requirement for us to do every 5 years, 2 years after the comprehensive plan, we would look at our growth trends report. This is a data-rich document that we're still working out all of the things that would go into it, but it would give us a snapshot of where we are as a community and how we're changing over time. It would look at what our needs might be for our community. I would say that right now, housing is a huge need. When we did our urban growth master plan, that was the primary factor. Minimum of 17,000 dwelling units are being proposed for that master plan. So that should give us a lot of land for doing that residential need. We would also look at commercial acre needs or industrial or employment acre needs. We would look at this growth trend report. If there is no need found for any of this land, which we wouldn't anticipate when we're following up a master plan, the process would end right there. We would report it out to the Planning Commission. We would wait another 5 years and do another growth trend report. However, if there was a need found, the Planning Commission would review some of our potential options to meet that need. The potential options would come in either one or a blend of the 3 things: policy recommendations to the Urban County Council, regulatory recommendations to the Urban County Council, or if the Planning Commission found that this need was necessary, potential alteration of the urban service area to meet that acreage need. The Planning Commission would make that recommendation to the Urban County Council. The County Council would go ahead, review those recommendations, take public input, and then go ahead and either affirm or modify the recommendations of the Planning Commission. Now, whereas the Planning Commission has 3 options or a blend of them, the council would have 4 options. The first option is no change. There's no necessary change that's needed to meet the need at this time. They're not really interested in doing it at that time. Or policy change, regulatory change, or an alteration of the urban service area. Now, the policy and the regulatory change just kind of stop right there, largely because that's a process that we already have. That's something that we do very well. So that kind of falls off of this. But if there was an alteration that was recommended by the Urban County Council, then it would follow another set of processes. The Urban County Council would identify a certain amount of acreage and send it back to the Planning Commission for review. There is also a bit of an offshoot lever. This is a special need for economic development land that has been identified. This would occur off-cycle from that every 5-year report. And really, if someone came to the Urban County Council and it was a transformative economic development project for our community, they would be able to talk with the council. They'd need a supermajority vote. That would be 10 out of 15 members. to go ahead and say, Planning Commission, we need you to go ahead and start looking at land in our community to fit this need. I will say that currently, the development community or anybody from an economic development community or anybody from a housing side of things can request this right now with an 8-vote kind of council lead. So that's just a zone change process. We have that kind of set up. So this puts a little bit more of a formulaic process that gets us into a way of talking about expansion no matter what. If there was an identified acreage need, the council would send it back to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has now the option to go ahead and look at the vacant land we have in our community. Stan put up a great map of all of the vacant land around the outside, and this has been a frustration of many people in our community. But if we are going to say, well, there's all this vacant land around the outside, why isn't it developing? This gives us an opportunity to go ahead and ask those people, why aren't you developing? Do you not want to develop? There's that wonderful graphic of Overbrook Farm at the very southeast portion of our community. They haven't wanted to develop in close to 30 years. They're not interested in developing in the near term from what we have heard. So we can have a conversation of, are you wanting to develop in the long term? And then if they say no, we have the opportunity to say, okay, let's remove this land from our urban service area so that it's just not sitting there fallow for a really long time, and put it back into a location that might develop and fit the need or meet the need that we would have for our community. It also allows us to have real conversations about what is holding someone back from developing in their land. What can we as a community help? Is there a regulatory change? Are there policy initiatives? What are the things that we can help people develop their land inside our community and preference infill and redevelopment? After that review, the Planning Commission would take that total acreage, say, all right, within certain locational requirements, we would like you to come in and tell us if you would like to develop on your land. This is pretty important because what has happened when we do expansions and we don't talk to people about if they're willing or wanting to develop their land is it sits there for a very long amount of time. We end up saying, oh, this area is vacant for 30 plus years. And I'll say we do have areas from 1958 still agriculturally zoned, still within the urban service area. We probably wouldn't want to take them out because they would donut hole our community, but there are a lot of people that are just not wanting to develop. And we need to have those conversations to make sure that if we are bringing people in, they will meet the need that we're identifying. Finally, we get to the part that we really know well, which is master planning for sites. Making sure that we're going ahead and we're getting the best type of development that we're going to get. And I will say that while the most recent expansion of our urban service area was somewhat painful for everybody involved, that it actually generated probably one of the most progressive plans we've ever had. We have a minimum density that we're trying to hit, trying to make sure that we're using that land to the greatest way possible, rather than setting thresholds of saying, here's the top. Putting in a ceiling doesn't allow us to generate new development or plan for the future 20 years out. So that would complete the process if we went through all of it. Again, I've talked a lot on alteration of the urban service area. The focus for me is really on the leftmost side. We want to talk about policy change, regulatory change, and making sure that we can be as compact, walkable, sustainable as we can possibly be. But it is very important for us to fill that hole that we've had in our planning kind of history and actually set up a framework for us to go ahead and move our community forward to ensure that we're preserving where we need to and that we are also talking about growth management in the best way possible. This allows for the comprehensive plan to breathe a little bit, taking the conversation of urban service area and growth and change out of that discussion so that we can talk about infill and redevelopment, so that we can talk about infrastructure, so that we can talk about equity and environmental things that we really need to get after that often get drowned out by our conversation of alter the urban service boundary or don't. It also codifies a lot of long-standing practices that we've had in place. By putting this into something that we've done before, I don't need to go back and look at 1996 and refer to the notes, and the person that comes after me doesn't have to look at 2023 and look at my notes. I will say I have a lot of handwritten notes by Chris King, who is instrumental in a lot of that, frankly, that shouldn't be what we're relying on. We should be relying on a clear process that everyone understands. And then really establishing a location for transparent data transfer. And then there are still things we need to work at. This is really just the setup of the framework so that we can then go back in and fill in the details and have these conversations over the coming months. In July, we're going to have another update on this process that will fill in more information, that will take some of the public input from this upcoming Thursday's meeting at the Senior Center from 4 till 7. I'll keep repeating that, so that we can make sure that we are reflecting what everyone is thinking about and answering those questions. And then we really do need to determine those needs. What are those thresholds for our community? We're working with partners from the University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, the State Data Center, to try to make sure that all the information is as robust as possible and is as clear and transparent as possible. So that is a quick run through, again, pushing you to engage Lexington for more information, or come on down to our office. We'll have a meeting. We'll go ahead. I have old eyes. Oh, please, you take the survey for the Engage Lexington, on the Engage Lexington website. It will be up on Thursday. That is for two reasons primarily. First reason, urban service area was the title of it in 1958. That was our focus. We were establishing an urban service area to delineate where urban services could occur. Second reason is something that I'm pushing. There's been a lot of discussion of the boundary. Boundary is a line in the sand that none shall cross. We don't have a rural service boundary. We are one community. We have a rural service area and we have an urban service area. I have had this conversation with a lot of people. The moment we just say things like this is a boundary or something along those lines, it makes people that are inside of the urban service boundary think that they shouldn't pass out into that area. And frankly, I think the ag community has been working very hard with horse country and with all the other efforts to say, no, we're still part of Lexington, come be with us. So I think that has been something that we have been trying to shift the terminology just so that we're talking about urban service areas, rural service areas, and why those things are different going from there. Yes, so the survey, fantastic way. The first survey was really focused on education. Have we provided the right information? You're here, so you're getting that education from Grow Smart Academy. You probably have been looking at things on the website. This next set of information that's out there is really asking for you to respond to certain elements of either the framework or some of the data that's out there. I think it is always important to also stress that the priority is infill and redevelopment. That is something that I know our council members are all about. And I think the framework that we're trying to set up and the process that we're setting up is to prioritize that first. I'll also say that every comp plan that we have has a set of implementation items that are meant to really push infill, redevelopment, and projects that could help that. If you are for infill and redevelopment, support those projects, support a project like this. Let your council members know about that, because a lot of the times when it comes to our community, when it comes to planning commission meetings, whether it's a zone change or something else, they hear that, no, we don't want that infill and redevelopment. Because and that makes it harder for developers in our community to do better infill and redevelopment. So I would say twofold, Please continue to follow up on the process. Please continue to answer the survey, but then also please continue to be active in supporting good projects in our community that allow for people to get new housing, affordable housing, and then also new amenities in a walkable and sustainable space. Yes. So currently on the website, the acreage that is displayed and the parcels that is displayed on the vacant land takes out floodplains that are associated with those properties. So that's removed. So our vacant land acreage is not calculated there. And if a property is wholly covered by floodplain, also taken out. That parcel is gone. So we're trying to be very intentional with what we call vacant land as well. Within our definition, we've been very consistent since the mid-2000s, saying if it does not have a principal primary use, zoning language, if it does not have a land use that's allowable in the zone, then it is vacant. If it's zoned agricultural, so agricultural rural, agricultural urban, inside our urban service area, then it is vacant. And really, we've been trying to focus in on this, and Peter and I have had a few conversations about it. Demolished properties, properties that have not been rebuilt, a lot of things, those kind of things. We are updating on that map. That map is as good as we can possibly get it. I will say that if you're talking about a downtown parking lot, that's an allowable use in our zone, so that's not vacant land. Yes, do I think it could be something better, something more? Absolutely, but that is allowable in the area, so it's not vacant. When it comes to affordable housing, we've been trying to work with our affordable housing providers in a much more robust way over the past couple of years. You don't see someone that is willing to do market rate and affordable that often. That's why Will's presentation is so important, and us supporting projects like that is so important. Because the vast majority of times, the people that are doing affordable housing are the people that specialize in it, because it is hard to get the money. So when it comes to our future expansion areas, we try to make it as dense as possible to allow for a variety of housing types and allowing, hopefully, for a variety of costs. We can't guarantee that within Lexington, within our current framework. Last time we tried to do inclusionary zoning, state pushed back on us. We pulled back so that it didn't get written out of state law. The last time we had conversations about rent control, the state took that off of our board. We don't get to do rent control in the state of Kentucky. So there are things that we're trying to do from a citywide perspective, dedicating 1% of our overall general fund to that. That's an important way to move forward so that we can help give the money to those projects. But the other aspect to that is, and when we talk to our affordable housing providers, they say one of two things: give us money or give us land. If we rely on, or if we relax some of our zoning codes that really make it impossible for affordable housing to occur because of the cost of the land, then we can get better and more affordable options so that they can do it by right or mix it on site with new development. So those are the things that we're trying to do. We will be reporting, especially on vacant land, within our urban, or the growth trends report. We'll have to have conversations about whether or not we can have data or metrics on affordable housing in our growth trends report, because again, how are we as a community funding it or giving them the land? That's the big question.